Hey, welcome back to fractions. Today I want to talk about adding and subtracting fractions with the same denominators. The denominators are very important because that's how you can add and subtract them. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate a couple of these simple ones first. So let's just say we had, let's do an easy one, 1/2 plus 1/2. Now, we're adding them, so I'm going to get 1/2 plus 1/2. I'm going to add the top, 2, add the bottom, 4. I don't know how many times I've seen students do this. This is not the correct method. So what you need to do on fractions, and I know a lot of people in here are shaking their heads because they're listening to this video on fractions, but what you do is you add the top. So you do add the top, which comes out to be 2, but then the bottom number or the denominator stays the same because they have this in common. It's called common denominators. So in my case right here, 2/2, we can reduce that because 2 goes into 2 one time. Okay, what about 2/3 plus maybe 5/3? Now notice this one has a proper fraction, 2/3, and an improper fraction. That is perfectly fine. So now what we want to do is we need to add the top numbers, which gives you 7, and then keep the common denominator of 3. Now, depends on what your homework tells you to do. If it says leave it in an improper fraction, this is the correct form. Or if you want to put it into a mixed number, and that's what my first set of videos were, that means you need to say how many times is 3. How many times does 3 go into 7? Well, it goes in twice. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract it. That means you got a remainder of 1. So you can write it as 7/3, or it goes in 2 times, so that's your whole number. 1 right here is my numerator, and we put it over our denominator, which is 3. Now we can do the same thing for subtracting fractions. So let's just say we have maybe 7/5 subtract 4/5. Well, we still do our operations on top. You still, instead of adding what we did on the first two, you subtract. You'd say 7 subtract 4 gives you 3. And you keep the denominator the same. Now, what about if I had something like maybe 3/4 subtract maybe 9/4? Now, not only am I putting in fractions, but I'm also subtracting them, which if we subtract the top, this is where we need to understand our placement. 3 minus 9. Okay, so since 9 is the biggest number, I'm going to make that negative, and then what's the difference between 3 and 9? It is 6, and our common denominator is 4. Now, on this one, we can simplify this more to make it's still negative, but the common number that goes into 6 and 4 is 2. So 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into 4 2 times, and we can also write that as negative 1 and 1/2. It just depends on what your homework or quiz or test is asking you to put it in, what form. Now, at any time in this video, you could always pause it and go back as well to go over these examples as many times as you need. Now, what about if we had eight over 6, subtract 8 over 6? Well, in this case, 8 subtract 8 is 0. 0 over 6. So what is 0 over 6? Well, just think the bottom number is a box of pizzas that's got 6 slices in it. And the top number is how many slices are left. So that means that you would have 0 remaining in the box. Now, we may run into some fractions that will have maybe 7/3 plus 2/3 plus maybe 5/3. So you may have more than 2 fractions that we're adding. So in this case, we still do exactly how I have shown us. You take your 7 plus your 2 plus your 5 and put it over 3. Well, 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 plus 5 is 14. So your answer could be 14 over 3, or 3 goes into 14 4 times with 2 remaining over our denominator. Maybe I give you a negative 1/2 minus 3/2 minus 5/2. Well, think about money. Think about owing. That means we're owing on every situation. So what I would do is, since all of these are technically negative, what I would end up doing is treating them as negative. If you owe me $1, owe me $3 right here. That means you owe me $4. And then if you owe me $4 and then you owe me another $5, that means you owe me, it's still going to be negative because you're still owing me, but now it's going to be 9 over 2. Or if they want it in a mixed number, 2 goes into 9 4 times, and since the fraction's negative, it's going to be negative 4 and 1/2. And finally, they may put some positives and put some negative fractions in. So maybe we use sevenths. Maybe 4/7 minus 11/7 minus 1/7. So when I'm seeing these minus, I'm doing this right here. If you owe me 11 and then owe me 1, that means you owe me 12. So that means I'm going to say it's the 4 is positive, so I'm going to say 4 minus 12 over 7. Which this comes out to be 4 minus 12. That means if you owe me 12 and you pay me 4 back, that means you still owe me 8, and it's over 7. Or it could read, your answer could be, depending on, like I said before, what format they ask you to put it in. They ask you to put it in a mixed number. 7 goes into 8 one time, and since it's negative, it's going to be -1 and 1/7. So the rules of addition and subtraction are the same. And this gives you an introduction of just adding and subtracting fractions with the same denominator. Thank you for listening.